All right. Looks like you're prepping for some serious action with these Squad v8.2 patch notes.
Oh, yeah. December 2024.
Weapon updates.
Big one.
Faction tweaks. Even a whole gunplay mechanics overhaul.
Yeah, they're not messing around.
But instead of getting lost in the weeds, we're here to give you the strategic lowdown.
Exactly. Yeah. Think of this deep dive as your shortcut to mastering the new meta.
Okay.
We'll break down what really matters so you can hit the ground running when the update drops.
From what I'm seeing, the big themes seem to be balance, realism, and giving players more tactical choices.
Sure.
But the real question is, are the devs hitting the mark?
Well, let's start with that tank respawn delay increase to 20 minutes.
Oh, wow.
That's huge, GE.
Yeah.
In a game where armor often dominates,
yeah,
this could completely change how people approach those big metal behemoths.
I'm already picturing more cautious tank commanders, hesitant to push too aggressively, knowing they could be out of the fight for a long time.
Absolutely.
No more easy mode with those armored spearheads.
Right.
It
raises the stakes
Yeah.
for each tank engagement.
Yeah.
It also forces players
Okay.
to rely more on infantry support and flanking maneuvers.
I see.
We might even see an uptick in anti-tank strategies.
And speaking of strategies, the way they've shuffled vehicles around for different factions is fascinating.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Take the Australian Defence Force, for example.
Okay.
They're losing a PMV RWS in their combined arms group, but gaining an ASLAV IFE in mechanized.
Okay.
Is this a buff, a nerf, or just a sideways move?
It's definitely a shift in playstyle.
Okay.
Losing the RWS might hurt their early game firepower a bit.
I see.
But the ASLAV brings more troop transport capacity and firepower to their mechanized group.
Okay.
They also got some RWS variants in the swap, so it's a mixed bag, really.
Yeah, it feels like they're trying to push the ADF towards a more mobile and aggressive playstyle.
Yeah.
Especially in those combined arms groups.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm also seeing similar trends with wheeled IFV buffs for the CAF and USMC. Could this mean faster-paced early-game engagements?
It's definitely a possibility.
Okay.
Those wheeled IFVs are all about speed and maneuverability.
Yeah.
So we might see more emphasis on flanking hit-and-run tactics than early-game map control.
Okay.
It'll be interesting to see how players adapt.
Okay, so we've got slower tank battles and potentially more aggressive infantry action early on.
Right.
What about the new toys in the sandbox?
Yeah.
Anything catch your eye in the weapon additions?
Well, the Insurgents getting the Mosin carbine back is a choice. It's a classic weapon, sure.
Yeah.
But how well it'll fare against modern rifles and optics remains to be seen. Might be fun for close quarters chaos, though.
I can already imagine the memes.
Oh, yeah.
Back to basics, comrades. But it does seem like the devs are going for a something-for-everyone approach with these new weapons.
I think so.
The USMC gets the M39 EMR for their marksmen. The WPMC brings back the AUG. And the USA marksmen get a suppressed M110 for stealthy operations.
It's a good mix of ranged precision and close quarters firepower.
Okay.
The suppressed M110 in particular is intriguing.
Oh.
Could be a real game changer for flanking and ambushes.
Yeah.
Especially with the faster transport helicopter spawn times.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of which.
Yeah.
6 minutes for all air assault groups.
Right.
That's going to make those early game drops a lot more intense.
Oh, for sure.
We might see a resurgence of air assault strategies.
Absolutely.
Especially on maps with key choke points or objectives that are vulnerable to aerial attack.
It's a significant boost to air mobility.
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side, some factions are actually losing a bit of mobility.
Oh.
The TLF's BMC logistics truck having its supply capacity reduced, for example. That's going to make resource management a lot tighter for them.
So while some factions are getting faster and more agile, others are being forced to be more strategic with their resources. Interesting.
Right.
And then there's the WPMC ditching their FOB mortars for mortar technicals.
That one's a head-scratcher.
Okay.
More mobility is usually a good thing.
Right.
But giving up the range and accuracy of FOB mortars for technicals, it's a trade-off. They'll be more vulnerable.
Right.
But their ability to quickly reposition could make them a real nuisance for the enemy.
Okay, so we've covered some of the big picture stuff, tank delays, vehicle shuffles, new weapons, and faster helicopters.
Right.
But there's a whole other layer to this update that we need to unpack. The USMC makeover.
Ah, yes. The USMC Light Infantry Battle Group. is getting a complete overhaul.
Okay.
Ditching the M27 IAR for M4s and M249s in most roles, trading their tanks for MATVs and TOW vehicles.
Wow.
It's a radical departure from their previous setup.
It feels like they're going for a shock and awe light infantry doctrine. Lots of firepower.
Yeah.
High mobility.
Yep.
But less emphasis on heavy armor.
The question is, will it be enough?
Yeah.
They're giving up a lot of staying power by ditching the tanks.
Yeah.
But with those extra TOW vehicles and the potential for rapid air deployments, they could become a real nightmare for enemy armor and fortifications.
I'm already picturing those TOW missiles raining down on unsuspecting tanks.
For sure.
But hold on, before we get too carried away with TOW fantasies.
You're right.
Yeah.
There's still a lot more to dissect in this update.
Okay.
Maybe we should dive into the gunplay mechanics overhaul next.
Yeah.
It's a big one.
Okay.
And it's going to change how everything feels in Squad.
You read my mind.
All right.
That's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
But for now, let's give our listeners some time to digest all this faction and weapon talk.
All right.
We'll be back soon with part 2.
All right.
Where we'll break down the gunplay changes and what they mean for your virtual battlefield dominance.
Sounds good. All right. Are you ready to dive into the nitty-gritty of gunplay?
Oh, yeah.
Because this overhaul is not just about tweaking numbers, it's about changing how every single weapon feels in your hands.
You're telling me, from what I've read, it's like they went through each weapon category with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah.
Standardizing everything from recoil to sway to even how fast you move while reloading.
Exactly. Wow. And the goal is to make the gunplay more consistent, predictable, and, dare I say, fun.
Yeah.
Remember those moments where you felt like you were fighting the weapon more than the enemy?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Certain rifles especially had a mind of their own.
Right.
You'd fire a burst, and the muzzle would be pointing at the sky. Not exactly conducive to accurate shooting.
We'll say goodbye to those wild recoil patterns.
Okay.
They've standardized recoil across weapon classes.
I see.
So you'll have a much better feel for how each gun will behave.
Right.
No more surprises when you switch roles or try out a new weapon.
So it's less about memorizing the quirks of individual guns and more about mastering the general feel of each weapon type.
Precisely.
Okay.
Once you get a handle on how, say, light machine guns handle, you'll be able to pick up any LMG and feel right at home.
Okay.
It's all about building muscle memory and developing a consistent shooting style.
That makes a lot of sense from a learning curve perspective.
Yeah.
But what about those of us
right.
who've already put in the time to master the old recoil patterns?
Well, there will definitely be an adjustment period.
Yeah.
But I think most players will appreciate the increased consistency in the long run.
Okay.
It also levels the playing field a bit.
Right.
Especially for newer players who are still getting used to Squad's gunplay.
More consistency?
Yeah.
And a smoother learning curve? I'm on board with that.
All right.
But you mentioned other changes besides recoil.
Yeah.
What about sway?
They've standardized sway patterns as well.
Okay.
Which is particularly noticeable with pistols.
Oh, okay.
They used to be a bit wobbly,
yeah,
making it tough to land those precise shots.
Right.
Now they're much steadier and more reliable in close quarters combat.
I'm all for anything that makes pistols less frustrating to use.
Yeah.
What about aiming down sights?
Okay.
Any tweaks there?
They've standardized ADS speeds.
Okay.
Across different weapon classes and stances.
I see.
So heavier weapons like machine guns will have a slower ADS time than lighter weapons like rifles or SMGs.
Right.
And naturally, your stance will affect ADS speed as well.
Right.
Standing as fast as prone as slowest.
So it's all about encouraging tactical decision-making.
Exactly.
You can't just run around with a heavy machine gun and expect to quick-scope enemies anymore.
Yeah.
You need to think about positioning, weapon choice, and the situation at hand.
It adds another layer of realism and depth to the gameplay.
Okay.
No more unrealistic spray and pray tactics.
Right.
You have to be deliberate and choose your shots carefully.
Now, you mentioned earlier that they even tweaked how fast you move while reloading certain weapons. It sounds like a minor detail.
Yeah.
But I can see how it could have a big impact on the flow of combat.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Heavier weapons will now slow you down more.
Okay.
Both while carrying them and reloading.
I see.
It reinforces that idea of tactical movement and positioning. You can't just charge into a firefight with a machine gun blazing anymore.
Yeah, need to pick your spots.
Right.
Set up your defenses.
Yeah.
and make every shot count.
Exactly.
I like that they're pushing for a more deliberate and strategic playstyle.
And it's not just about individual weapons.
Oh, okay.
They've also made some interesting class-specific adjustments. For example, machine guns, both medium and light, are now more effective when fired off the bipod.
Oh.
This opens up new tactical possibilities,
Nice.
allowing machine gunners to provide suppressive fire on the move.
Interesting.
Or lay down covering fire from unexpected positions.
Ah, so they're not just relegated to static defensive positions anymore.
Right. They have more options for dynamic gameplay.
I like it.
And on the other end of the spectrum,
Okay.
submachine guns have been tweaked to have even better control at close range.
Oh, wow.
Think flanking maneuvers, room clearing, and those intense up-close and personal firefights.
Oh, yeah. Those CQB maps are about to get a whole lot more intense.
Yeah, for sure.
And what about the other weapon categories?
Yeah.
Have they gotten any love in this update?
Definitely.
Okay.
Battle rifles, marksman rifles, and bolt-action rifles all got some attention.
Okay.
They've added camera shake effects to make these weapons feel more powerful and impactful.
Right.
And they've standardized the ADS speeds, making them faster than machine guns but slower than rifles.
I could just imagine lining up a headshot with a battle rifle and feeling that satisfying camera shake as the bullet connects.
It's all about adding those little touches of realism and immersion.
Right.
They've also reworked the recoil configuration for the AKM family of weapons, making them a bit more manageable. They're still powerful, but now they're a bit more controllable.
So it's not just about making everything super realistic and difficult to use.
Right.
It's about finding that sweet spot between realism and fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about making sure every weapon feels distinct and rewarding to use.
Right.
While also ensuring that the gunplay is balanced and fair for everyone.
You know, as we're talking about all these changes, I can't help but think about the bigger picture. This gunplay overhaul is going to have a ripple effect
for sure.
on every aspect of squad.
Absolutely.
How people approach engagements, how they build their squads, how they strategize on different maps. Everything is going to be affected.
It's a seismic shift, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's going to be fascinating to see how the meta evolves.
Yeah.
Will certain factions or playstyles become dominant?
Right.
Will new strategies emerge?
Good questions.
Only time will tell.
I'm already itching to get in there and experiment with all these changes.
Right.
But before we get ahead of ourselves...
You're right. We still have a few more things to cover.
Okay.
Why don't we move on to some of those smaller but equally important changes?
Okay.
Things like the localization shift, the new friends list feature, and of course those hilarious bug fixes.
Sounds like a plan. Let's give our listener a chance to catch their breath.
Okay.
And then we'll be back with part 3, where we'll wrap up our deep dive into Squad v8.2. All right, we've covered the big ticket items, faction changes, new weapons.
Yeah.
A whole gunplay revolution.
A lot of changes.
But you know what they say?
What's that?
The devil's in the details.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And this update has some intriguing details.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's those subtle tweaks that end up having the biggest impact on the overall experience.
Case in point, the localization shift.
Okay.
They're reverting all those translated capture point names, layer names, game mode names, back to English.
Back to English.
Seems like a minor thing, but...
It's actually huge EE for communication, especially in international squads.
Right.
Imagine trying to coordinate an attack when everyone's seeing different names for objectives.
Yeah, that's a good point.
This change brings everyone back onto the same page, literally.
Yeah, it's all about clarity and teamwork.
Right.
Speaking of teamwork, let's talk about the long-awaited friends list.
Oh, yeah, the friends list.
Finally, we can actually add friends and join their games without jumping through hoops.
No more server browser searching.
It's a simple addition, but it has the potential to really strengthen the community aspect of Squad.
Oh, for sure.
No more frantically searching server browsers hoping to find your buddies online.
Right.
This opens the door for more organized squads, clan activities, and just general shenanigans with your friends.
Absolutely.
Now, I know some players prefer a bit more structured shenanigans.
Okay.
And for those folks, the admin's got some new toys to play with, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Particularly with the local voice chat controls.
I see.
Admins can now restrict comms to friendlies only, or even set it up so you only hear enemies within a certain range.
Wow.
Think about the role-playing possibilities on those hardcore milsim servers.
I can already picture those tense scenarios.
Oh, yeah.
Infiltrating an enemy base.
Right.
Relying on whispered comms and hand signals to avoid detection.
Yeah.
It has a whole new layer of immersion and strategic depth.
For sure.
And of course, no patch notes would be complete without a healthy dose of bug fixes.
Right, of course.
Some of these are pretty amusing.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it.
Like that WPMC Loach helicopter.
Yeah.
It used to fling soldiers away like a rodeo bull.
I remember that one.
I'm still laughing about that one.
Yeah, that was a funny one.
It's like the helicopter had a personal space bubble
Right.
that you just couldn't penetrate.
Yeah, exactly.
Glad they fixed that.
Me too.
But there are some serious bug fixes in there too.
Oh,
especially relating to armor hit damage and vehicle layouts.
it sounds like the devs really focused on ironing out those wrinkles that could impact gameplay fairness.
So looking at the big picture,
Yeah.
it's clear v8.2 is a massive update for Squad.
Absolutely.
It's not just adding content.
Right.
It's refining the core experience.
Yeah.
Addressing community feedback and really pushing the game forward in terms of realism, balance, and strategic depth.
It's like they took everything they've learned over the years and poured it into this update.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It touches on almost every aspect of the game.
It really does.
From the way weapons handle to how players communicate and interact with each other.
Yeah.
It's exciting to see a game evolve like this.
It really feels like they're setting the stage for the future of Squad.
I think so.
And with all these changes, the tank, delays, the faster helicopters, the gunplay, overhaul the localization shift.
A lot of changes.
It's going to be fascinating to see how the community adapts.
Absolutely.
And what new strategies emerge.
It'll be interesting to see how the meta evolves.
Absolutely. This update throws a lot of variables into the mix.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so exciting.
It does.
We'll see new tactics,
Right.
new approaches to map control,
Right.
and a whole lot of experimentation as players figure out how to master the new meta.
For sure.
And that's the beauty of a game like Squad, right?
Right.
It's always evolving.
It is.
Always challenging players to think critically and adapt to new situations. And with v8.2, that challenge just got a whole lot more interesting.
It's so much more interesting.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Squad v8.2.
It's been fun.
We hope you've gleaned some valuable insights.
Yeah.
And are as excited as we are for the update to drop.
I know I am.
Until next time, stay tactical, stay safe.
Be safe out there.
And keep those virtual battles raging.
Keep fighting the good fight.